Welcome everybody to this week's episode of Perfect Reload Weekly. My name is Steve, and one of these days I'll not trip over my words so much. This is where we look back at the week in video game news, and as always, I am joined by geez, there it is again, Mr. Christian Slater. Christian, how you doing this week?
I am the final form of your car's extended warranty.
That tracks. So we're going to kick things off with what I've been playing this week, and I'm back to an old game again. I took a week off from playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I was back at it this week, and I am trudging my way through the Wall Market chapter. The game has really slowed down for me. I felt like the whole process of getting to Wall Market was really slow, going through the tunnels and fighting those things over and over again. And then getting to Wall Market, it's this like really bright and vibrant, colorful area, but you just like, I mean, yes, you get to absorb it a little bit, but then you're just thrust into this like combat tournament room thing, and it just kind of went on and on. I guess they kind of broke up the levity a little bit with the whole honeybee sequence, which was, you know, that was interesting. You know, I don't know. I didn't really quite know what to make of it. You know, I was being judged very closely by Christian, who he was worried that I wasn't going to talk about it. Are we just
not going to mention how you tried teaching me the choreography to Cloud's dance sequence? You keep yelling, I miss human contact in between loud sobbing.
I do miss human contact because all I have is you and your cold steel hands caressing me at night. But it was like a really out of left field moment in the game, the whole dance sequence thing. I never made it that far in the original game. I don't know if that was in there. I don't maybe it was. But the game is, I'm hoping it kind of picks back up once I get through this section. It'd be nice to meet back up with the other, you know, cast of characters, and I think I do. I've been playing the game kind of with a walkthrough because I really just kind of want to get through it. You know, I'm not necessarily focused on doing absolutely literally everything in it. I just kind of wanted to experience the story, play an RPG, breath of fresh air, that whole thing. But I got a new game coming out in a week, so I kind of want to. There's no way I'm going to get it done in the next 7 days, but I want to kind of progress. Like, we got to get going here. You know, I feel like we kind of been in this holding pattern for the game for a little bit, where it was just a bunch of side quests, and then you go into Wall Market and you do this combat dungeon thing, and then it just spits you back out to more side quests. And it's like, at this point, it's starting to kind of feel like, man, they're really padding this game. Like, I get that they took a very like small subsection of the original game to turn into this big project, and that's really cool that they're doing not just a remake, but a reimagining in a way. Like, that is a really interesting way to approach this. But it's like, come on, we got to kind of get get going here. But that was really all I played this week. I was actually quite busy this week, so I didn't have a lot of time to sit down and play games. But this coming week, definitely looking forward to diving into Hogwarts Legacy. I should have enough time to at least play a little bit of it before I record next week, so I'll have my thoughts in the next episode, and I'm sure I'll bring it up as I go through it. That's a game I feel like, unless it's really just not my thing, and it doesn't look like it from all the footage I've seen, I think it's a game I'll be playing through to completion. But before we move on to the news, I touched upon this the last couple episodes, you know, kind of following along with The Last of Us as I've been watching the show on Sunday nights. And I wasn't sure, like, was this going to be a regular thing every week where I talk about it? But man, episode 3 was something really, really special. There's been a handful of episodes of television that I think kind of stand out on their own as almost like a mini movie. And I don't mean just so in the fact that, like, yes, the third episode of The Last of Us is almost like a self-contained story. They did that with Apple, or on Apple TV, Mythic Quest. They did that whole side episode that had like the Jake Johnson video game developer story, and kind of like the story of how his game blew up. I wish I could remember the other actor that was with him that played his wife. And that was like a very self-contained thing, but that is a great example of what I'm talking about. These episodes of these shows that kind of transcend the normal narrative arc of the show, that kind of maybe show things off to the side. I think maybe one of the biggest examples of the past 20 to 30 years would be Pine Barrens, the episode of The Sopranos that follows Paulie and why am I blanking on his name? The Christopher out in the woods as they kind of survive in the cold for the night. That's like a really good example. Another one would be the bear from last year. I think it was episode 7, where it was really just like seeing them work in the kitchen. The season premiere of, I think it was season 2 of Master of None, where they did the black and white episode in Italy. I thought it was like a really special episode and just a really special piece of media. But episode 3 of The Last of Us, it is just really stuck with me, and I think it really hinges on Murray Bartlett's and Nick Offerman's just unbelievable performances. I actually did not recognize Murray Bartlett, seeing him with the beard. I believe the only thing I've ever really seen him in was the first season of White Lotus, and he was speaking with his actual accent. He put on an American accent for The Last of Us, and I just did not recognize him at all. So as soon as the episode was done, I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, it's Murray Bartlett. Like that makes sense. He is a tremendous actor. And I've long been a fan of Nick Offerman, not just for Parks and Rec, although I very, very much relate to Ron Swanson as a character, maybe more so than I relate to any other fictional character in life. And I just thought that it was perfect casting. I thought the writing was excellent. I thought that they worked well in the confines of the length. It was a little bit, was it a little bit longer? I guess it was a little bit longer than a regular length episode. Because you had, it was all obviously in flashback. So you did see some current storyline stuff with Joel and Ellie, I think bookending it. Yeah. And, it's just really got me excited for what this series can do. I think that there were a lot of fans that were worried that they were going to make too many changes from the game. And honestly, so far, I mean, this change is better than anything the game did because, spoiler alert, Frank, Murray Bartlett's character is dead when The Last of Us happens in the game. It really fleshes out the world. It really gives you backstory that the game really didn't give. And that's necessary for a television show. You got to have context. There's only so much you can do without context. And it was really, really well done. And I know, Christian, you had some thoughts on it, although please don't make a joke out of this, man.
I do have something to say about it. I thought it was a beautiful, challenging, and insightful piece of art.
Actually, really well said, man. That's really nice of you to say. So yeah, that was kind of my thoughts on Last of Us episode 3, and we'll move on. We'll move on with the news, and we're gonna pick it back up as we had another big video game release lately, and that was the remake of Dead Space. It's not a game that I'm going to play, but I did want to touch upon the fact that it is getting like super rave reviews. People have really kind of brought this game back into the mainstream. It was a game that was, I thought, pretty popular when it came out. I did play it when it originally came out. I don't know if I bought it or rented it, but I played through it. I really enjoyed it. I played a little bit of 2, and then I never touched 3. I'm not a big horror game fan. At the time back then, I was probably a little bit more willing to try new genres, although I am trying to get back to it. Last year I played the Quarry, so I'm working on it. But I am really pleased to see that it's getting awesome reviews. EA needs a win. This seems like it's a win for them. Callisto Protocol, which was made by many of the people that made the original Dead Space that came out in December last year, kind of, in a way, kind of missed expectations. I know some people really, really enjoyed it, but I was having a conversation with a friend who played through it, and he was just like, podcasts I listen to, people are like kind of lukewarm on it, but people seem to really, really dig this Dead Space. And I know, Christian, you said you were kind of interested in playing it, right?
I consider the 2000s my Dead Space.
I guess you don't need to play it then, you lived it. But moving on past that, there was this video that Sony put out earlier this week that showed, it was like a fake news broadcast, and it showed a lot of PlayStation properties, and there was a scene that looked Uncharted-ish, and it's gotten people talking about Uncharted. And Naughty Dog, and Neil Druckmann from Naughty Dog has said that they have moved on from Uncharted. They have no interest in doing another Uncharted. Who knows if that's actually true? He has been misleading in the past. Rightfully so. You don't want to just lay all your cards out on the table. But Uncharted 4, I mean, really did feel kind of like a conclusion. I actually just went back and played through Uncharted 4 again for the first time since it came out last year, so it's a little fresh on my mind, although I did play it, I don't know, 7-8 months ago at this point. But it really does wrap up in a nice way, and it does, truthfully, it does kind of end, not necessarily in a cliffhanger, but they introduce Elena and Drake's daughter, and a lot of people at the time were like, oh, well, maybe Uncharted 5 would be the daughter, or a spin-off would be the daughter, that kind of thing. You know, I don't know. If they were going to do it, I think that that's what I would have liked to have seen. I think that would have been kind of a cool mantle to take up, although I know that would immediately draw comparisons to Tomb Raider, but I think they could have done enough different from Tomb Raider to not just, you know, bring it down to its base properties of, oh, it's a woman in the jungle, automatically it's Tomb Raider. Like, I think that, you know, they could get past that. Personally, selfishly, yeah, I'd like to see more Uncharted. I don't know if I want to see Uncharted without Drake. They'd have to come up with a really good, compelling character, whether that's a brand new character, his daughter, or whatever. I think it could be cool if they did go with his daughter and maybe she like consults Drake for advice and things like that, so he's not a playable character. And I don't even know if I would want him as like the Sully character that's along with you for the ride, because at this point he would be 50s, 60s, something like that. And I get that Sullivan was, you know, it probably in his 50s during the majority of the Uncharted games. But I think it would be cool more so if maybe Elena and Drake were very much background dressing, giving the spotlight to the daughter. I think that's probably the way that I would go about doing it. Who knows? It's also entirely possible that Sony is like, hey, we think Uncharted is going to make us money. We're potentially going to make another Uncharted movie. We need an Uncharted game. If Naughty Dog doesn't want to do it because they're wrapped up potentially doing The Last of Us 3, that we know they're working on that multiplayer game. They're going to be locked into Last of Us stuff no matter what because of the success of the television show. Maybe they rip the IP from them and give it to another studio. Maybe they create a new studio from scratch. Maybe they give it to an existing studio. I don't know. Maybe they say to Sony Santa Monica, hey, don't bother making another God of War game, or don't bother starting something from scratch. We're going to give you Uncharted or something. You never know. It could not, and it could also not happen at all. We could just never get another Uncharted game. But like I said, selfishly, I wouldn't mind another Uncharted game. Going back to Final Fantasy, it was actually Final Fantasy Day in Japan for its 26th birthday. This is an article from Kotaku, and they announced a few things aside from making it Final Fantasy Day or Final Fantasy VII specifically Day in Japan. They announced that there are going to be Spotify playlists for Cloud and Sephiroth. But the weirdest thing that they announced is that they are doing a Midgar special pack for Power Wash Simulator. There's going to be a Final Fantasy VII Power Wash Simulator crossover. I think that it's just such like a bizarre thing, but hey man, it's kind of cool. You know, it's weird, and weird is good sometimes. And then the last thing is that they are doing a collaboration with Lego, although it is not what you would hope it would be. It is it's just that they're going to build something out of Lego that's Final Fantasy VII related. We're not getting Final Fantasy VII sets or anything like that, but maybe this opens the door to get that. We have seen a PlayStation property get a Lego set before. There is a Horizon set that came out 2 years ago, I want to believe. So maybe we get something for Final Fantasy VII. I don't know what that would be. I guess maybe they could do like a chocobo. That would be kind of interesting. I would say that they could do Cloud's sword. Lego has this weird thing with weapons where some weapons are allowed and some aren't. Like they've done Thor's hammer. The Lego Star Wars minifigs do have blasters, but they have a very like anti-gun, anti-realism thing. So I don't know, even though Cloud's sword is this larger than life object that like no human being could actually do anything with, maybe that is still a little too realistic for them to do. I don't know. They certainly wouldn't do Barrett's like gun arm. They would make that look real different. I actually know in my mind I could picture the pieces that they would use for his like little minifig. It would not look realistic in the least. So I don't know. You know, we'll see what happens with that. But it'd be cool. I would really like PlayStation to kind of say, hey, let's do more with with Lego and put some other sets out. I think Horizon was a cool start. That set was well received. I don't think it sold amazing just because Horizon is not, it's a big game, but it's not like the biggest game. And it's also like a somewhat newer game. It doesn't have that legacy that a lot of Lego properties have. Lego tends to do license deals with long running properties, you know, stuff like Star Wars that's been around since the 70s. They have done television shows, but they did Big Bang Theory and The Office. Big Bang Theory was on for 12 years, 11 years. The Office was on for a long time and is still one of the top watch shows. So, I mean, they really do dig into these like existing long running things, but I would like to see Lego kind of shake that just in general and be more open to different kinds of things. And I think video game licensing would be huge for them. They have the massive deal with Nintendo that has produced some awesome stuff. They did the thing with Atari that was super cool. So yeah, I'd like to do more. Let's build a PlayStation. Let's do a little PS1. I think that'd be neat. Now, moving on, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, the sequel to Fallen Order, has been delayed. It was supposed to come out on March 17th, which is about 6 weeks away from the date of recording this. It is now being pushed back to April 28th, so not that long, a month and a half. I think that's, you know, it gives them time to polish things, get things going. March also has like a couple of decent size releases, and it does get them out before May, which is when Zelda comes out. There is another game releasing on the same day, but I don't think it's anything massive. I think it might be Dead Island, the other Dead Island game, the new one. My thoughts on this are I don't like the Souls type games, and that's what this is. I did play through Fallen Order, and I did enjoy it, but I did not enjoy it enough that I think that this would be a day one purchase for me. I want to see the reviews, and I'll wait and see. Maybe I pick it up on sale in the summer if there's a lull. You know, stuff like that. And then to wrap up the news section, this really shouldn't be news because the decline of E3 has been coming, but Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation apparently will not be going to E3. That honestly really doesn't surprise me. I don't really know who is going to be going to E3 right now.
Who cares if they're going to be there? I'll be giving out free eye exams in the convention center parking lot.
That's great. Awesome. Thanks, Christian. Much like the dentist at the Gathering of the Juggalos, I presume, right? Yeah. You know, E3, we're in a digital age now. These companies don't have to spend all this money on a big budget stage production. They don't have to travel out there. The public, you know, they eventually let the public into E3, but for the longest time it wasn't. And it seems like when they did, it caused a lot of problems. People were standing in long lines all day just to see one game. Who wants to really go out and do that? You know, they can just do their Nintendo Direct. They can do their PlayStation, whatever the hell it's called, the Microsoft, whatchamacallit. I don't know. You know, they can do whatever they want. And I'm sure Keighley is still going to be doing the Summer Games Fest thing. And honestly, the Summer Games Fest thing, and, you know, it's really kind of replaced that. You know, you still get, you know, all the news you need and all the trailers you want. It's just done either by him and some guests on a stage, or it's just done by a pre-recorded video. The end result is the same. Yes, I do get nostalgia for the days of E3, tuning into the press conferences and having everything all at one time within like a 1 week block. And, you know, now we kind of get stuff like drip fed throughout the year. So, you know, there is something lost. And I do think there is something to be said about getting the entire industry together at one particular time, at one place of the year all together, you know, because you get E3 adjacent content. You know, I miss watching like the Giant Bomb stuff where Jeff Gerstmann would interview Phil Spencer, and that's not really a thing that can happen now for a multitude of reasons. And so I don't know, it sucks, but you know, you got to kind of move on and adapt with the times. I don't think that this happening is going to in any way prevent us from getting video game announcements during the summer. I still think that most people are used to kind of being like, okay, June is when we're going to start announcing stuff. And I don't think that's going to change. I think that Keighley's got a good thing going with the Summer Games Fest. I hope he doesn't stop that for any reason. And I hope we still get a big, even if it's not a stage production, just a big hour-long video from Microsoft, from PlayStation, from Nintendo saying, here's what's coming out. Here's some surprises, all that stuff. I hope it still kind of stays around the same time. I would prefer that, you know, save the other stuff throughout the year to maybe focus on specific games. you know, we'll see what happens. You know, E3 is probably eventually going to go away within the next, I don't know if it'll be around even next year, but within the next 5 years, if it is around, it's going to be radically different than it has been. So, you know, we'll see what happens, but I do miss the days of the traditional E3 experience, but hey, you know, stuff changes over the course of time, and what can you do about it? But that's going to wrap things up for this week. We'll be right back here next week. Another episode of Full Motion Sickness should be coming out within the next week or so. I believe the next game we are doing is Soldier Boys, which is an FMV game directed by Darren Aronofsky, the director of The Fountain and Pi and Mother and The Whale. You know, like this really well-respected director. He's actually my personal favorite director of all time. And I know nothing about this game. I am really looking forward to watching it. I haven't recorded it yet, so I don't know what I'm in for. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good time. Christian, anything else you want to say?
Yeah, we'll see you next week right here at Dumbass Video Game Weekly Recap Show that no one watches.
Thanks. See you next week.